First of all, again, want to thank very much, especially our comrades. This was an initiative together with the International Committee and directly with Progressive International, which we are a proud member of as DSA. So one of our speakers is going to be David Adler, who's one of the co-coordinators of Progressive International, who splits his time between the UK, US, and then all around the world. Has been very involved, obviously, in all the legal, some of the legal strategies supporting the ICC and ICJ cases around the genocide in Gaza, as well as PI. And we also are incredibly happy to also have to get to hear from Miguel Duarte, who's from Portugal, who's sort of expert in leading sea rescues of migrants in the Mediterranean, who's also one of the heads of the in charge of the ship, where again they're calling in from the Family, which is one of the lead ships of the flotilla. And we'll also be hearing then also from Bianca Webb-Pullman, who's a physician from New Zealand, who's also participating. So really excited to hear from the three of you, obviously, about this experience, what's going on with the flotilla, how we as DSA, direct from the belly of the beast, can be in solidarity with what's going on at the flotilla, making sure you're all safe and able to carry out your mission, this crucial mission to end the blockade, the illegal, immoral blockade of Gaza by the Zionist entity. And basically just talk about the experience and any ideas of what role we can play as DSA in supporting this movement. So whoever wants to start.
I'll kick us off, Jana. Thanks so much.
Sounds great.
And then I'll pass it to Miguel and then to Bianca. First of all, it's so great to see so many of you bunking off work on a Friday afternoon to join us. And I want to apologize for any trouble we may have, either for our internet or for the bumpy ride that we're all on right now. I would say we're cruising at no fewer than 7 and that in pretty choppy waters. You can see that. We've got a full deck of people behind us who are joining us on this family boat. We're kind of like sardine onto this boat, although we look forward to quite a strong community along the way. So yeah, I think speaking on behalf of Progressive International, but also on behalf of the Global Sumud Flotilla, it's extremely important for us to be able to communicate to you all in the United States. It's a sort of tragic irony that one of my main motivations personally as a U.S. Republican, and I think that maybe Miguel from Portugal and Bianca from New Zealand would share this, that we have certain passport privileges. There's a certain idea that our passport carries a certain value, and that there's an idea that in times of trouble, whether we're arrested, on a minor drug charge in Brazil, or we're caught up in some geopolitical drama in Southeast Asia, might somehow give us something else. And what's so fascinating about this particular mission is that with the current incident, I think that U.S. Americans are extremely vulnerable, because it's one case where I think that this current administration would really prefer any citizen who stands up for Palestine or legal residents, whether it's Khalil or others, to rot in prison or to be deported illegally or to suffer what they must for the simple crime of attempting to defend international law and standing up for the basic principles of human rights and decency. So here's a special, just to kick us off, I think it's especially exciting to be speaking to the DSA. Obviously, comrades, friends, people who are consistently and determinedly on the right side of history. But I'll leave it to Bianca and to Miguel to say a bit more about their own stories, because Jenny, you've given such a generous introduction. And maybe you could speak for a couple of minutes about how you came to this boat, how you came to this mission, and a bit about the Mediterranean Sea that we're crossing now and what it means geopolitically.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having us. And again, sorry for the difficulty in communicating, but it's the weather is pretty choppy at the moment. So yeah, I'm from Portugal, and I've been organized politically for about 10 years in the movement for migrants' rights, specifically as a sea rescuer in the Central Mediterranean, with a number of different NGOs that have been leading the movement of civil sea rescue. The civil sea rescue movement started around 2014 as kind of not. It was never really just humanitarian. It was always a political project in a sense that it was aimed at not only rescuing the people immediately, those who are in immediate danger of drowning, but also it had from the very beginning this idea of bringing visibility towards the fact that we shouldn't have been there. We shouldn't be the ones there, right? A bunch of activists, doctors, journalists, going into these sometimes dangerous missions in the Central Mediterranean to rescue people is something that should not happen, should not need to happen. And so, I think when the opportunity came of joining the flotilla, I saw more than a few similarities between one type of mission and the other, and one type of struggle and the other, right? I think when we talk about the people who've been dying in the Mediterranean over the past decades, we even see numbers that are comparable to the ones that we're getting from Gaza at the moment. We see, somewhere in the tens, at least in the tens of thousands of people dying, not as a result of any kind of, weather event or misfortune or whatever, but as a direct result of European border policy. Right? So the culprits are very much the same in both massacres, right? We see people dying in the Mediterranean by the 10,000 as a result of European border policy, and we also see a genocide in Gaza that is largely enabled by European policy as well, right? Even the technologies that are used, we see Israeli drones that are battle tested in the slaughtering of Palestinians now being used as a way to spot migrants and bring them to torture camps in Libya by Frontex. And even at an ideological level, there's a lot of similarities, like the political project of dehumanization of an entire people that we've seen over the last many decades with the Palestinian people, and that we've seen in more recent decades with particularly African migrants in the Mediterranean Sea. And so, yeah, I think similarities are very much obvious, I think, and so it seemed like the struggle was very much the same. So this is kind of what brought me here.
And so when I was thinking about the composition of his votes, when we were talking, Jenna, about this potential webinar, there's so much slander against this initiative, so much hasbara, so much propaganda, and it's surprising how well it's taken hold in the United States, that this is somehow a kind of selfie cruise, or that it's being led by this professional managerial class of activists who are taking time off of their grad student seminars to take an adventure on the Mediterranean. And one of the major things that I think is important to communicate is the extent to which this Global Sumud Flotilla in particular unites people from 44 countries, mothers, fathers, people who are spending their last money to be here, people who are really putting it all on the line for Gaza. I think that's really important because I think it helps to fight a sense of impotence, hopelessness, and despair, into which it's very easy to fall. But we can't do anything, especially in the United States, because it's not just so obstinate, but it's so committed to backing the policies, the practices, and the technologies of genocide. So I thought that Bianca, who is a medic from New Zealand, would be an excellent addition to this discussion to say a bit about how it's possible that someone, first of all, from so far away, but someone who's also so central to the operation of the flotillas, right? Because we all are risking our lives, and we've had a drone attack on the boat. Maybe also, Bianca, you could say a bit about, because Bianca was on the boat when the attack happened on the family boat. So maybe you could say a bit about the drone attack and what brought you to the project and all the rest.
Okay, yeah. So basically, I'm a family doctor from New Zealand, a general practitioner, and I actually did my training in Australia, and I now live in Australia too. And one of the things that has been really difficult for health professionals around the world, I think, is to witness the systematic destruction, the targeting of hospitals, the repeated bombings of the same institutions, and the killing of so many of our medical colleagues in Gaza. So this last count, there were 1,580 healthcare workers that had been killed. However, that was a few weeks ago, and I don't actually know the number at this point. But the point is that these people they're not some sort of collateral damage. They are people that are deliberately and systematically taken out of action. And what they represent is not just one life, not just one person and that person's family. They represent skills and experience that, when they're lost, are removed from their ability to teach students, to mentor and train other doctors. And all the care that they could give to all those patients is stolen. So I see them as, I don't feel that health professionals are necessarily intrinsically of more value than other lives, but what their role represents does have that effect. So in my own country, like Australia, where I'm based, and also in New Zealand, we have united groups of doctors and also other healthcare workers. So we've got a number of different groups that have formed, and we're taking a lot of different actions to pressure our own government and our own health institutions to take a stronger position on the genocide and our government's complicity. Because Australia, our government will say, we don't sell arms to Israel. We can't do anything about a place on the, an conflict that's occurring on the other side of the world. But in fact, they are deeply complicit. Parts for the F-35 jet are manufactured right in Melbourne, where I live. And there's also a culture of suppression of healthcare workers speaking out against the genocide as well. And that's been really challenging. We've had people's careers threatened, been doxxed, and, some people have lost their jobs over it. People think Australia and New Zealand are far away from the issue. Well, we are struggling there with the same things that people in Europe and the US are struggling with, and I feel our governments are just as complicit. So how I got involved was basically 2 years of, watching the most horrific genocide carried out against people in Gaza, and our colleagues just utterly overwhelmed and distressed trying to deal with it. I've got some friends who have actually been to Gaza on medical missions, and they spent about 6 weeks there. One of them has done 3 of those missions. She's a general surgeon, and the stories that she's come back with, and stories from doctors around the world around what they've seen and what doctors within Gaza are telling me. I couldn't just sit at home and continue going on marches, writing signing open letters, taking out a page in the main newspapers, and all our names are listed there. All of these things, we've been doing them, and they haven't resulted in any concrete change. And so for me, the flotilla is it's an opportunity for us to do something concrete, and it's an antidote to despair, because I think we all feel that, and all of us, but particularly in healthcare, we never imagined we'd see anything like this. So it's therapeutic in itself, but it's not why we're doing it. We're not here for ourselves. We genuinely expect to reach Gaza. We're determined to do that and bring the aid that we can to the people there. My role's a bit different on the boat, obviously, because I'm a medic. So I'm not a big fan of boats, to be fair. It wasn't something that I ever particularly considered as a recreational pursuit. And it's been pretty rough. And the conditions that I've had to deal with, I mean, I imagine, sure, we're going to have a bit of seasickness, no surprises. But we've also had quite a few sort of injuries as well, because obviously it's pretty rough and, you know, steep stairs and everything. So I anticipate that we're going to have a whole range of different conditions that I'll have to deal with on this.
And the drone.
Thing. Oh, yeah. God, the drone. Sorry. Yeah, the drone. So Miguel and I were both on the boat when the drone attack occurred. And I was asleep at the time and just heard this enormous explosion just outside the window where I was sitting, was sleeping, and just this ball of fire and people running and yelling. And I had no idea whether the boat was going to sink or what was going on, and ran outside, and the crew were trying to put out the fire. It was...
Should we let Miguel tell his heroics?
Yeah, he's got better things to tell.
Miguel was also on the boat when we were drowned.
Yeah, I was on the back part of the ship when I heard what was clearly a drone. I got out of the cover to see this big drone just 3 or 4 meters above my head. Called someone to see it with me, and just a few seconds later, the drone moved to the forward part of the ship and dropped this incendiary device that created this this enormous flame that took over a good part of the deck of the ship. Fortunately, with our very competent crew, we were able to put out the fire within a few minutes, and there was no structural damage to the ship. That's certainly something to celebrate. And I think what came afterwards was very interesting for me to see, because what I see when coming to this flotilla and meeting some of the hundreds of people that are part of this project is that I don't feel like I'm surrounded with extraordinary people. I don't. I love you all, but I don't feel like there's anything particularly extraordinary about this group of people. I feel like, as you've said already, it's people from all walks of life, with one thing that unites us, which is that we very badly want the genocide to end, and we want freedom for the Palestinian people. And even after realizing this, and after seeing the drone attack actually twice in 2 days, what I saw was that hundreds of people who had all the reasons to just drop out, right? Because again, we're not trained for this, right? This is not what we do for a living at all, right? And still, what we saw was hundreds of people, finding courage in one another, and finding courage in the fact that not only the vast majority of the people were willing to go ahead immediately after the attacks, but also that we had a global movement behind us, right? Just one day after the first attack, there were protests in so many places all around the world, right? I mean, and to see that, I think, is what pushes this group of ordinary people towards our ultimate goal of getting to Gaza and creating a humanitarian corridor. This was something that I think will be forever stuck in my mind.
Jenna, over to you. I think we want to do a bit of a Q&A, right? So I'll let you ask any questions, and then I'll repeat them to Bianca and to Miguel where they're relevant. Oh, what you guys aren't seeing, I'm trying to hold this level, but what you aren't seeing is it's more. Okay.
Yeah,
Anyway.
we get back and forth. Well, we have about, I think, 5 or 6 questions that are,
Sure.
DSA members have put in the chat. But I think before that, maybe more specifically, if you could kind of give us a little bit, kind of what's your timeline? When do you think you'll arrive to Gaza? And then so we as DSA can also be prepared to kind of be ready to start, our social media thing and calling Congress people and whatever we need to do to make sure everybody's safe.
So I'll get started with an answer. So this is an unbelievably complex logistical challenge. that starts from finding boats, buying boats, finding crew, finding captains, and of course, finding participants. So it's like, I think we're all here with a certain sense of admiration and deep respect for the complexity of an operation that combines a Spanish fleet and a Tunisian fleet, that combines an Italian fleet and a Greek fleet, and that brings together people from all over the world with the same code of conduct of nonviolence and humanitarian principles that we hope, although I'm sure we'll get there in the discussion, as Israel tries to install a narrative that we are, as they call us, the Hamas flotilla. No surprises there. You know, there's been so many setbacks that I think are that were perhaps predictable, and others that were not. The drone strikes were not necessarily predictable, but one thing that was predictable was that, you know, where we tried to anchor, there would be additional bureaucratic sabotage, is the phrase that we use, you know, ways of slowing us down, ways of trying to sort of demotivate and dismantle the coalition that is trying to that has been put together. So this flotilla, this convoy, I should say, had an original timeline, even with those complexities of reaching this week. And now it's looking like we're not going to reach yet until next week, until, you know, we'll be approaching the orange zone. Really, as we kind of ironically, as we approach the date of Israel's remark to the General Assembly of the United Nations. I know many people in New York City DSA are preparing for a mobilization along those lines, and we hope that you consider sort of holding us in your hearts along the way, because we expect to be reaching the orange zone around the 26th or 27th, when we're kind of going and sailing into darkness with the expectation. Well, we can get into what we expect exactly from interception. And so logistics are really challenging. There's questions of repairs, refueling, questions of weather. As Miguel mentioned, the conditions are difficult because it's not sailing season. We're not on the easiest seas. But I think everyone's pretty undeterred and intimidated and determined to continue forward under those more difficult conditions. And everyone's making as much space as they can in the context of day jobs and other commitments, professional, educational, and otherwise, to be here. But more simply to your question, Jen, I mean, we will be communicating regularly from the boat, from the flotilla, about where we are in the track or where we are in the journey, when we expect for there to be a real danger. That said, there could be danger anytime. Every night, each of us is assigned a slot, and we do drone watch, as you can imagine, after the first experience in the port of Sidi Bouzid, Tunis. We're all kind of drone ready, and so we share that responsibility together. So it's tough to give a definitive date right now on arrival. Do you guys have something to say about logistics, or should we get to Q&A? Go for it, Jenna.
Yeah, thank you so much. We're gonna shift to calling on questions from the audience. There's this great, eminently relevant question here to you on the ship. Just Italian trade unions have pledged to shut down your ports to lose contact with the flotilla. What do you see as the importance and potential impact of this type of radical labor action in solidarity with the humanitarian efforts with the flotilla?
We're asking about the trade unions, like in Genoa and elsewhere, have got to shut down the ports. What is the importance of trade unions? Want to take that? Yep, sure. Yeah, you got.
So yeah, over the past days, weeks, we've seen huge mobilizations, huge shows of solidarity in coming from very different contexts. I think, yeah, one that became quite famous was this declaration of solidarity by the Genoa dock workers. But then, so many others followed. We had a big group of social centers and social movements from Northeast Italy threatening to block the port of Venice as well. We've had student unions in Italy also threatening to block the universities. And even today, we've seen the port of Ravenna being blocked and some of the weapons shipments to Israel that were passing through the port of Ravenna being blocked, and so hindered from getting to Gaza. I think this is really, I mean, this is what we need in short. I think these demonstrations of solidarity with very material consequences to the genocide in Gaza is really what I believe has the power to change things.
God.
Sorry, particularly big wave.
Just rocking around.
Yeah, I think the flotilla by itself will do nothing, right? We're only effective to the extent that we are that we have a basis on land of social movements organizing and exerting pressure on our governments to change something, right? We've seen countless times that our governments by themselves will not end the genocide. They will not end the violence against the Palestinian people, and so it's up to civil society. And these massive protests, literally millions of people on the streets globally, unions standing in solidarity with the Palestinian people, refusing to fuel the or to help fuel the genocide. We've seen some weapons factories being blocked in the south of France in the last few days. All of these things are what has given us the small achievements that we've had over the last days. We've seen some countries finally declare sanctions against Israel. We've seen Spain, Belgium, Scotland, for example. We've seen the UN finally declaring after 2 years that what's happening in Gaza is a genocide. We've seen a lot of these improvements, let's say, in the way to isolate Israel in the global stage. That I must say are largely symbolic so far, meaning they don't present an existential threat to the genocide yet. But what I think this goes to show is that popular pressure really works. All of these movements and how big they've become really work. And if by now what we've achieved are a series of symbolic measures, I think if and when the movement grows bigger and more powerful, we will see soon enough material consequences that will, hopefully end the genocide and the violence against the Palestinians.
And we just passed September 11th, marking another anniversary of the U.S. endorsed coup against Salvador Allende. And of course, the experience from the fallout from the Pinochetista coup was a high point for this kind of labor solidarity when Rolls-Royce workers in the UK refused to produce weapons for the Pinochet regime. And I think we've all, whether you're in DSA or DSA adjacent, or whether you're in our PI, I felt a degree of frustration about the role of trade unions, in the absence of trade unions, in a more solidaristic position. No one, truly no one more shameless than the US longshoremen who went on strike and said, don't worry, we'll still handle weapons as they leave off for Israel, because we refuse to ignore our responsibility to the U.S. American military establishment, even though, of course, we're not formally at war according to war powers. So I think it would be reasonable for many people who are watching this to say, you know what, frankly, it's a little bit too little too late from the from the trade union movement in general. But I do think that what Miguel is important in the sense that it's not going to be easy to feel in the US. Maybe you feel this way about ANZ, but something is changing. In Europe, something is changing. And it's crazy how little support this flotilla has in the US. Something like on the main Instagram account of the Global Sumud Flotilla, only 10% of the engagement is coming from the US, which is so crazy because usually on these big Instagram accounts, it's a lot of heavy, ADHD infested US American users. But it's just not, we're such a cynical political culture. We're one in which we've come to accept such a low standard from our shredded trade unions and our minimized social movements and our marginalized political parties, But we want to emphasize to you that, like, if you're feeling inspired by this action, or you're feeling like there's some hope somewhere in terms of how the paradigm is changing, as Miguel is saying, like, it is happening. I mean, when we touch down in Barcelona or in Tunisia, it's accompanied by thousands and thousands of people who are coming out, and especially in North Africa, like, anything you want, anything you need, how can I help? How can I get involved? There's a wellspring of solidarity and support. And our expectations were always low with the US. And I think, you know, speaking as a US American, you know, I have 3 passports. I have a French and Australian passport. And they asked us, which one do you want to travel with? You can pick one passport to travel with. And I was like, well, 2 of those are probably going to help me get out of prison, and one is going to let me stay there. And I was like, yeah, but we should obviously, for US Americans, you know, choose the US American passport and see how far we can heighten those contradictions and force the high liberal sectors of our societies to finally respond in a more substantial way to this genocide that they've tried to sweep under the rug. So I think the trade union aspect is epicentral. I think that we're clear-minded about how far it can and could go. And I think we're all pretty depressed about the fact that it's taken a flotilla like ours to inspire a lot of those trade unions to movement. Obviously, you know, Jorge, we work together with thinking about North African port workers and how to stop weapons shipments there. But now we're talking about a much bigger scale. We're talking about students refusing to go to school if they touch this flotilla. We're talking about railway workers refusing to get on trains. I mean, we're talking about really using this direct action to escalate a broader international solidarity movement. And I think that's the point that we're trying to make over and over again, that whatever happens at sea must and can only succeed if it's connected to a broader mobilization at land. Anyway, long-winded answer. I'll pass it to Bianca for the next one.
Well, actually, we'll jump to the next question. Well, before we get to the next question, also on the same topic, just to let you all know, and my personal union that I'm a member and a leader of, which is the Public University Professors Union in Sao Paulo, we just pressured our university administration at the Universidade Federal do ABC in Sao Paulo to pass a resolution not just in support of the flotilla, but breaking any institutional academic ties with Israel. So it is possible to get labor involved. I know we have the Labor for an Arms Embargo resolution, which passed resoundingly at our convention, that DSA is obviously going to be building upon in the days and weeks and months. With that, we have another question from one of our new MPC members, Francesca, who wrote, "Our beloved Mediterranean Sea has been turned into a mass grave by the ruling class. Initiatives like sea rescue missions and the flotilla insist on keeping it a place of life and not death." And this is maybe specifically more for Miguel. Do you have a sense that the civil society collaboration between the flotilla and the people on the flotilla might also help expand sea rescue missions in coming years? Many people are talking about the connection between the struggles against the genocide and against Fortress Europe. So yeah, feel free to jump in on that, Miguel, or anybody else.
I'm sorry, I'm going to have to ask you to repeat because it's really hard to hear from you.
Totally. Well, I'll just summarize the question. The question is basically, with this, you know, this initiative of the flotilla, do you think this will be able to link up and strengthen the sea rescue missions again, you know, in support of immigrant rights for people heading to Europe?
Yeah, hopefully we get to convey the message that the struggles are one and the same. As I was saying at the beginning, I think a lot of people are quite committed to showing that. Maybe you've seen that one of the biggest civil sea rescue ships that is active in the Central Mediterranean, that belongs to this big Italian NGO called Emergency, is today joining us on the flotilla to support. We've actually just seen them a few hours ago, coming to us and to provide us support, not only in terms of whatever rescue needs we might have, but also they bring a full medical team for whatever may be needed. This is a rescue team that is involved in civil sea rescue. This is what they do, right? And they took time to get out of their life-saving work in the Central Mediterranean to support this life-saving work of getting humanitarian aid to Gaza, right? I think this really, is very educational for us all. in showing precisely the connections between the struggles, right? It's not only this particular NGO, but I think even, you know, I've seen in the hundreds of people that we've already met that are involved in the flotilla, we've seen a lot of people who are also involved in sea rescue, right? It's not only that the skills needed are similar, or the skills that are useful are similar, given that we're talking about humanitarian missions at sea, but also, you know, again, at the risk of repeating myself, we see two massacres that are very much the same in terms of who's to blame and the technologies that are used to inflict violence upon tens of thousands of people. So I do think that these things push towards the creation of one movement that supports both causes, right? I do think that the growing solidarity towards Palestine ultimately also supports the end of the massacre in the Mediterranean Sea.
All right, thank you so much. Another question actually from another new member of the National Political Committee for DSA, Christian. He's asking, what would you like to see from heads of states and nations at next week's General Assembly? I know David and Progressive International have been involved with the Hague Group. So be curious to hear what, you know, some people who don't know, this upcoming week, the United Nations General Assembly is going to be opening up, and the president-elect of that General Assembly is a former minister from Germany, who is has been and Progressive International has been instrumental, and as well as, like, you know, DSA jointly got on board, which is tied to why we're doing this call, to try to block her agenda. So David, would you like to speak more about it as well as everyone else?
Sure. I mean, I'll speak about it quickly, but I think I'll pass it to Bianca as well as say a few words. You know, 2 days ago, we saw a declaration from 16 states: Spain, Slovenia, Ireland, Mexico, Colombia, Brazil, declaring their support for this as a humanitarian option, as a humanitarian mission, rather, and demanding recognition of international law insofar as it pertains to our efforts to deliver humanitarian aid to Gaza. And I think our response was, I think, you know, great, we feel a little bit safer. But if you really want to join this humanitarian mission, like, come on by. You've all got navies, you know, pack up a ship, sail on down, and join us in breaking this humanitarian corridor. Nothing we're doing is illegal. Everything we're doing is protected under international humanitarian law, and we should not be doing it. I would love to be in New York with you, Jorge, with the rest of my colleagues in the Progressive International, as we organize all this work around the Hague Group, and as we try to fight a great fight that DSA is part of to get genocidaire Annalena Baerbock to step down from the UN General Assembly presidency. So I think maybe a little bit more to say about this, Bianca. Like, what we want from heads of state is not related to this flotilla. Of course, we would love to, like, be granted diplomatic passports that guarantee our immunity, but kind of it's not the point, because we all accepted a high degree of risk when we joined this mission. You know, we're seeing, as I mentioned, a new paradigm emerge in the Hasbara that we're harboring terrorists, and we're guilty by any association that we've ever had with anyone who supports popular resistance, whatever. We've all signed up knowing that we're putting our lives at risks, but it really doesn't matter, because kind of the whole point is to get these states to take seriously their good faith obligations under international law, including their own UN General Assembly resolution they passed 1 year ago, the deadline for which was yesterday, to align their national policies with the ICJ advisory opinion on Israel's illegal practices in the occupied territory. So, like, Annalena Baerbock is the, you know, horsewoman of the multilateral apocalypse, obviously, and it's crazy that Israel is speaking on the floor of the General Assembly. But I don't know, when you think, Bianca, about like the Australian government or the New Zealand government, and we think about how it relates to our mission, but the genocide itself, what would our message be, you think?
Sorry. So my message to my own government has been the same for a very long time, which is that we are demanding sanctions and an arms embargo, and the expulsion of the Israeli ambassador, to be fair. I mean, just recently, Australia expelled the Iranian ambassador and imposed more sanctions on Iran for some sort of involvement in what they describe as these anti-Semitic attacks within Australia. When you compare that with 2 years of genocide, and all we've received from our government have been statements. Recently, they stated that they're going to recognise a Palestinian state. All of these things are words, statements, paper. We've seen no concrete action whatsoever to stop the genocide. And, I guess I'm somewhat cynical as well about the UN, because I sort of think maybe the UN should just be turned into a museum for the UN, what the UN was for, and it's never achieved. So I hope that's not the case, and I hope that what happens there does have the capacity for genuine change. But yeah, I'm rather jaded about the whole thing, which is why it's important that we're here.
I'm a bit more hopeful in the sense that I think that if we continue on thinking about the ways in which things are changing as opposed to staying the same, I think that this is going to be a crazy UN General Assembly. I think that we should expect some pretty pyrotechnic stuff to happen. I think people are really pissed off. I think Israel's really pissed off. And I think that the international community is really pissed off. And I feel really excited to be able to host, from the Progressive International, a space in which states can experience, share, and build on their sense of frustration. But I think that Bianca is absolutely right. I mean, everyone's been lauding Spain for all these amazing measures they've been taking recently. And Pedro Sanchez has done like a slew of measures that we don't even have to cover. But I remember what happened, like, he announced some major cancellation of a major military contract, way too little, way too late, whatever. And then what was it? I think he like sort of recalled briefly the Spanish ambassador to Israel. And I was like, wait, why do you still have an ambassador there? Like, we're so diplomatically, we're so far from where we need to be to enter into a South African scenario in a dismantling of apartheid. And it's shocking how isolated or how protected the diplomatic community is from these popular pressures that Miguel was talking about. We're seeing a lot of effects on policy, but by and large, at that elite diplomatic level, it's just, there's a certain, I guess, esprit de corps that is protecting. There's esprit de corps in one sense, and then there's the great U.S. veto power of the raised hand at the Security Council, which we saw just yesterday. But no, I think next week is going to be could be a really fascinating. I hate to be sort of Adam Toozian about it. Extraordinarily interesting. No, it'll be a fucking crazy experiment in how rubber hits road when the world has finally woken up to the crime of genocide and they want to try to do something about it. So we'll see.
Great, thanks so much, David, Bianca. And so let's just to kind of close out this part of the question and answer and let you all go back and take some Dramamine if you need it right now. Yeah, I think a few similar questions we got from our members who are on, and just also to let you know, we have 123 DSA members from across the country right now on this call, like I said, right in the middle of their workday for most of them. So the question, kind of similar questions came up, sort of a little bit of kind of what are your expectations? What's going to happen next? What's your plan if and when Israel tries to escalate? And then the other question to kind of close out with, from where, how do you get your sense of courage and emotional security? And along with that, like what kind of parting words you might have for us to help us here in the United States as the DSA inspire our ongoing Palestinian solidarity work and obviously work in support of the flotilla.
I'm gonna let Miguel and Bianca close it out with answering those two questions.
So in terms of what we might expect, naturally we've discussed a number of possible outcomes for this mission, and just by looking at the history of this movement, the history of the flotillas that, if I'm not mistaken, started in 2008, we see that only 5 flotillas actually made it to Gaza, and every single one of the others was either intercepted or attacked by the Israeli forces. And so, the second drone attack that we had last week was the 39th time that one of the ships in a flotilla is either attacked or intercepted by the Israeli forces, right? So, what can we expect? I think we can expect more of these tactics, right? We can expect more drone attacks as we draw closer to Gaza. We can expect interventions, but honestly, also there's something different about this one action, right? We're not just mindlessly repeating what's been done over the last years. This is by far the biggest flotilla that has ever been organized, right? And it's not only the biggest, it contains more ships and more people than all the other flotillas combined, right? So this is an unprecedented escalation in this movement to try to get humanitarian aid to Gaza and to break the illegal siege from the Israeli forces, right? So I think there is, if we only look at the past, it seems like there's a slim chance that we get to Gaza, but I think by looking at how we're organizing this and how many aspects of this have never actually been done, I think there's good reason to believe that we actually might get there.
What gives you strength, and how do you want to inspire people on the call and beyond?
Well, so in terms of the strength, I mean, I'm very conscious of how extremely vulnerable we are. And, the realities of the drone attacks, the fact that potentially they're going to be dangerous and life-threatening events. To me, the fact that it's such an important cause that we can't be put off by that. And I do feel confident that the popular support around the world is going to be protective. We have had these governments demand our security, and a lot of bodies around the world and individuals also are watching this and are very committed to ensuring our safety. And like people in my own country are very conscious of what's happening. They're watching the tracker, and we have lawyers in our own countries, and we have a legal team in Israel that will help us if we are intercepted. So I do, although there are risks, I do feel that overall we're very much supported, and we've also got a great crew on our ship. I think the boats are well prepared with these drills and everything that we're doing. Okay, if they want to kill us, they're going to kill us, but we are capable of giving ourselves a good fighting chance. And yeah, that's it.
I thought I'd close out by, we've been teasing you all with the background here, so I thought I would just
You okay?
yeah, I'm okay, but is the camera okay? I thought I would just turn my camera around to just see that we get this beautiful sunset when we sail on into the distance.
Incredible.
Sorry. Thank you guys so much for having us. Thank you, Jorge.
No.
Thank you, Jenna. Thank you, Megan.
Thank you.
No,
Stay strong. Stay safe.
And thank you so much, David, and thank you to Bianca and Miguel. Absolutely wonderful for calling in while being on this on the way to blockade. Question before a call to action: you're going to be going into exactly what strait again, David? Just to make sure everyone's aware. Okay. But point being, if you wish to help, and it already dropped off, to help, be sure to check out this toolkit for your chapter. It's very important you check it out because it's not so simple as simply being in solidarity. Solidarity requires action. And so, the Global Sumud Flotilla requires mobilization. If what they're saying is true, they will be approaching Israel in a week's time, around the 25th, 26th, according to what they said, if my information is correct, which means that we must be ready to mobilize, right? Including here, there's going to be a mobilization from various parts, and especially those of us who live in the US, that there are so many embassies and consulates, whether it be Israeli, normalizing Arab states, the UK, France, Germany, Italy. Be sure to participate, as well as organize labor unions. There are much effort that can happen regarding port workers. There's a link to Labor for Arms Embargo campaign flyers that are in this toolkit. And as mentioned before, DSA is in solidarity with the Global Sumud Flotilla. The DSA national organization released a statement saying that the flotilla does not sail alone. And if this is true, if we agree, I shared it to the host and panelists. I'm so sorry. Here's for everybody. And so if you wish to do so, if you wish to assist, and if you wish to be concrete in your solidarity, this is what you can do. And be sure to share this with your chapters. And it says here, specifically on September 22nd, Italian trade unions have announced a 24-hour general strike on Monday, September 22nd. So be sure to be on the lookout for the labor mobilization that will happen with the Italian labor unions, but also be on the lookout for when the flotilla is approaching. And lastly, this week just coming up is going to be the week of many actions, but importantly, counter programming, as this is the week that the UN General Assembly will be opening up, and the president that's been elect of Borbak must be opposed. So thank you so much, everybody. And yes, be sure to check out all the different work, whether it be like if you're in New York City, whether you're other chapters, there's many resources in this toolkit. Be sure to apply to the International Committee as well. If you found this webinar compelling, this is just the beginning. If you wish to continue working on this, be sure to apply. And on that note, thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Love, solidarity, strength. Free Palestine.
Free Palestine. Absolutely.